Welcome to the Her Handmade Hustle Unplugged podcast. I'm Joanne Shears, a female entrepreneur, small business coach, and a creative business owner on a mission to help and inspire other women out there who want to make a decent living doing something they love. If you have your own small business, or maybe you've been thinking about starting one but not sure where to start, then this podcast is for you. I share everything I know about starting a creative business from my own experience of running my handmade stationery company, Vintage Twee. It's as honest and as down to earth as me, and it's an eclectic mix of sound business advice, northern humour, and real life, because it's not easy, is it? This podcast celebrates the selflessness, the strength, and resilience of women, because we possess a superpower so great that we can handle whatever life throws at us and come out the other side. We are survivors, we are warriors, and we are as determined as hell to succeed. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Her Handmade Hustle Unplugged podcast. Today I'm being joined by a wonderful woman that all people, in fact anyone who has the responsibility of caring for young children, need in their lives. Chantal Shears is like the modern day Mary Poppins, like magic and all, kid you not. She is mother to 4 boys, all under the age of 15, 2 cats, 1 dog, 1 tortoise and a snake. Plus, she runs not 1, but 2 businesses and is honestly one of the most calm women I have ever met. Chantal set up a social enterprise in her hometown of Newquay, Cornwall, called The Clothes Horse, where she helps parents and carers get clothes for their children who may be financially struggling or fleeing domestic violence or who are refugees and they've got absolutely nothing. I mean, can you imagine? What a service. Chantal's passion is sustainability and helping the environment, which is exactly what the Clothes Horse is about, by recycling unwanted or unused clothes. And she does this all from a shop run by volunteers, where families can come in and choose the clothes that they want or need, as well as a postal service for those who can't get to her. Chantal's background is in teaching. She was a primary school teacher and she's now training to be a child therapist. She set up a second business, see, it's not just me who likes a challenge, after suffering badly from postnatal depression throughout having her 4 children. It took her some time, but she managed to get through it, and she did this by making sure she carved out small amounts of time in her crazy days just for her. And she gradually found herself becoming lighter and less depressed as these little moments, they built up, and she began to feel more like herself again. And this had all kinds of benefits for her children, mainly being able to be more present and patient for them. So Chantal set up Grounded Parenting, which helps busy, tired and stressed out mums prioritise self-care so that they can raise emotionally grounded children. Because we're all guilty of it, aren't we? Putting everybody else's needs first and not taking enough time to make ourselves happy. We actually share a couple of funny stories about how one of us packed for a camping trip and only brought herself a bag of carrots. And the other one went swimming and packed everyone's clothes but forgot to put in her own underwear. I'll leave you to figure out which story belongs to which one of us. With Chantal, she has some great advice for mums and women in general, to be honest, on the importance of taking time for you, even if you don't think you have the time, because that's the problem, isn't it? You always say, I haven't got the time. But she's got some brilliant tips on how to help children and grandchildren regulate their emotions on those difficult days when stress levels are so high and you feel like you could just run away. You know, we've all been there. I was there last night when my daughter lost one of these little stick-on nails that she's got, and I just tried to fob her off with something I'd fashioned out of a bit of plastic from my office. Needless to say, it was a disaster, and I could have done with Chantal in that moment. But I think you're really going to like this episode, so stick your earphones in so no one can disturb you, and enjoy listening to my interview with the lovely Chantal. Hi, Chantal.
Hello.
Hi, thanks so much for joining me today.
You're
It's
welcome, thank
lovely
you.
to have you. Not at all. We actually found each other, didn't we, on a Facebook group for mums in business, and there was a lady on there looking for advice on how to start a podcast. And I'd put a comment on there and told her like how I did it, and then that's how I found you. And you messaged me and said that you'd be interested in coming on the podcast, which is amazing and great. And you told me all about your business ventures. We had a pre-podcast chat last week. And you told me you're a mum to 4 boys, which at that point I thought, yes, this woman is perfect for my podcast. She's a survivor. And I think it was the point when we were talking about playing with our games with our kids. And we both said, for me, it's like hair salon ladies that I have to play multiple times a day. For you, I think it was Lego figures. And we said that it just like feels like hours and hours. And you look at the clock and it's been 6 minutes.
Yeah. Yes, definitely.
And you're just like dying inside, aren't you? Thinking, oh God, when is this going to end? But yes, I was so glad to have you on. So thank you for joining me. When you're not juggling being a mum of 4 boys, you've got a couple of ventures going on, which we're going to talk about today. And they're just amazing. The first one that I wanted to talk about was the social enterprise that you started up, the Clothes Horse. So yeah, tell us a little bit about that and how it became, what it is now.
So the Clothes Horse began in 2016, so quite a while now. Yeah, gosh, 8 years. So basically, we live in Newquay, Cornwall, and at that time I had my 4th child, and all through all of my pregnancies and having my children, we always got hand-me-downs from my cousin and some other friends and family, and it always, served us well. My husband was the only one working. And yeah, it was just such a blessing to get those clothes. And then when Jacob came along, I was sort of thinking, about next steps, and then it just got me thinking more about clothes and maybe how I could perhaps help other people in Cornwall. And then I just thought about how a lot of people move to Cornwall and they might not always have that network around them, family and friends. So then I thought how great it would be if those families could get clothes for their children, especially when they're starting out. So it started from there really. And then I didn't have a shop or anything like that. So I put the clothes in my loft. So I started a small little Facebook page. And then people would come give me clothes, donate clothes. And then those would go up in my loft, and then people would message me to ask for clothes, and then I'd get the clothes ready, make it nice for them, put it into a sort of a nice parcel.
Oh, wow.
Give them out. And then obviously it didn't take long for us to overflow our loft. My husband's a carpenter, so he had a workshop, and bless him, basically I just took over that with our yeah. And yes, we were there for quite a while, and then in 2019 we got our own shop. It is small, but we sort of fit it as much as we can. And my thinking has always been that I wanted the way we presented our clothes to obviously look nice. I didn't want anyone to be rummaging through in bags or anything like that. I mean, I do love a rummage, but I just think it'd be nice to have it looking nice, presentable. We've got a little play area for children, so when mums come with their children or mums and dads come with their children, they've got somewhere where the children can just play and
that's fabulous.
Just browse. And for us also, it's about the environment. There's enough clothes in our planet, just it's ridiculous. So I just feel that we don't need to buy new.
No.
And a lot of the clothes that we get, especially baby clothes, come into the Clothes Horse, they haven't been worn. So
no, that's it. You get given so much, don't you, when you have a baby, and you haven't really got time to be changing them into all these nice outfits. They're there in a baby grow. I think my little girl was in a baby grow for the first 6 months. I was too tired to change her. Let alone coordinate her in all these outfits people have bought her.
Yeah, definitely. So we're all about being secular, the circular economy, to make sure that the clothes go in, and then myself and the volunteers, we sort through the clothes and we only put out very good quality clothes. So our ethos is that we'll put clothes out that we would dress our own children in or our grandchildren in. So it's of the best quality. And then anything that doesn't hit the mark, i.e. if it's stained or anything like that, then they are recycled or used for something else.
Yeah, so it's all it's very sustainable, isn't it?
Yeah.
So can anybody access this service then, the Clothes Horse?
So anyone can access the our service. If there are families that can't get to where our shop is, which is based in Newquay, then they can send us a message and we can post clothes out to
Oh,
them.
that's
We're in the process, actually. We're hoping to get some funding at the end, if not beginning of the year, to sort of make our postal service bigger, so that then what we're hoping to do is to have it that people can have a a call with us, talk about exactly what they want. We can even maybe show them some items so that we get everything specific for them, and it's a nice experience for them. And then we'll package it up and post it to them. At the minute, families send us a message of what they want. I want clothes for my 5-year-old boy, warm winter clothes, and then we do it that way. But we wanted to make it a bit more, I don't know, a bit more personal, I guess.
Yeah, it's like having a personal shopper, isn't it, as
Yes,
well?
yeah.
Some of the I'm guessing some of the families that you get, obviously, low income or no income, maybe homeless, like, what kind of people do you get coming to you at the clothes
So
horse?
we get lots of our families are all about the environment, so they
Yeah,
want to be sustainable. So that probably makes up quite a large part of our families. However, we do get families who are on low income, they're struggling with the cost of living. We also help support workers, family support workers, and other agencies with families who've had to flee their home through domestic violence, for example, or if they've just been made homeless. We've also helped refugee families as well who've just moved into the area. So,
it's
yeah,
fabulous.
sort of, I guess, a broad spectrum.
Yes, I mean, it's great because I remember when we were talking, when you first told me about the clothes horse, it reminded me of a service we've got round here, where I live as well, that started up a year or two ago, and that helps families who are maybe struggling, and again, the same sort of ethos with sustainable clothing. But, I've been there myself last year, well, actually beginning of this year. I've been off work for a long time with my operation, and I didn't have an income, and we were struggling just on one income, and it helped so much just going into this place, and you can literally just go and choose what you need, and we donated stuff in exchange as well, because again, like a lot of parents, probably you have piles of clothes hanging around, don't you, that your kids have grown out of, that are still perfect and still should be worn. And so, it's nice to take them to places like this to help other people. So it's a fabulous resource. It's so good, and I think it's just such a wonderful addition to the community as well of what you're doing. So I know a lot of people will be wondering, like, how do you fund this? Like, obviously you have your donations and stuff.
Yeah, so we mainly have funding. So we have local funders, like organisations who help us. So, for example, we've had funding from the Cornwall Community Foundation. They've been fantastic. We've
Great.
also had funding from the Lindsay Barbarians, which is a local group as well that fund children's charities. We've also had funding from the government, cost of living crisis funding,
Yeah.
um, and some funding from the lottery as well to help us. We also run pop-ups. So
Oh,
sometimes we'll run pop-ups out in the community. We had one on Saturday, although I got there and it was all brilliant, set up. I was parked in the wrong area, put everything in the wheelbarrows, got there, was there for literally 10 minutes, and then it started to thunder and there was
it was
light.
good on Saturday, wasn't it?
So I was like, oh no. Yeah, and then we had to, because I didn't have a gazebo, because I think I was just being hopeful. And, and then it got cancelled. But yeah, yeah, so we do pop-ups, and what we do there is we'll have a couple of rails, and then we have a suggested donation for the clothes people take, and then the same at the clothes source in the shop as well. We put out a suggested donation for clothes, and then we've got a little pot, or people can give a card donation as well.
Oh, that's
So we
good. I mean, obviously, it's a social enterprise, so
Yeah.
a lot of people might be wondering, like, how do you obviously make money from that? Does it all go back into the? It's not a charity of such, is it? Yet
No.
it's a social enterprise, so the money I'm guessing that you make just goes back into it all the
Yes.
time, and
Yeah.
you've still got volunteers working for you. Um,
Yeah.
Brilliant. Oh, it's absolutely fantastic. It's such a good venture.
Oh,
And I'm going to put details of the whole thing. So you've got a Facebook page. Do you have a website?
Yes,
You
yeah,
do,
we've got
yeah.
a website as well, and
Great.
we're on Instagram too.
Oh, brilliant. I'll put all those details for people to read about in the show notes because it's just such a fabulous resource, and
Oh,
it really
thank,
is helpful. Like I say, I've used a service like that myself, and it's been a lifesaver, to be honest.
oh, thank you.
So the second thing that you do, amongst everything else, so you are training to be a child therapist. That's correct, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, and you have another small business venture called Grounded Parenting.
Mhm.
So tell us about that and how that came about, because I know a lot of women that listen to this are mums, and I think they would really relate to this service that you offer as well.
Oh, thank you. So, grounded parenting came about just from my own journey. So, when I had my elder son, about a year after having him, maybe a bit before that, I got really, really low, really depressed. I believe it was postnatal
Mm.
depression, and it just kept going in sort of waves, I guess, throughout having my four children. Well, I think I just sort of recovered when I was pregnant with my four,
Mm.
and it was a massive struggle. And I think out of everything, what got me through it, even though it was really hard, is I just kept sort of I had a great network around me, but I had to just really push myself to sort of get out there, especially outside, and to basically prioritize me. And
Yeah.
it was quite a journey to get there. It didn't obviously happen overnight or anything. But when I did start putting in these steps, i.e., for example, I would wake up a bit earlier in the morning before the children would wake up, and I would just spend that time on me and just focusing on me, having a bit of quiet time, journaling, all those sorts of things. And it was starting to make a bit of a difference when I was putting that focus, yeah, on me.
Yeah.
And then through that, I've, you know, my depression has gone. I've been able to, I've seen a change with myself and my children, for example. Like I'm able to be more present. I haven't had all these rambling thoughts in my head. All of those sorts of, things. Like I remember days when I was really low, really depressed, and I was there physically for my
Yeah.
boys, but mentally I just didn't have the capacity, and I was just feeling rubbish. I was always berating myself,
Yeah.
just, you know, felt worthless. And I remember actually in the middle of this part, my friend, I don't know where we were, maybe we were in a cafe or something, and I had a plate of food, and one of the boys came over and took all of my food, so I didn't have a lunch or cake, whatever it was. And she
Yeah.
sat there and she went, "Sham, what about you? Like, you need to eat. What are you gonna have?" And for me, that was a massive moment, and I was like, I hadn't even thought about me, and I think that was a shift that I realised that I need to think about me, and what is that teaching my boys when I don't put me first and think about me? Is it going to make them think, "Oh, I bet I'm not important enough"?
Yeah.
So from that massive journey,
Mm.
then that's wanted me to set up grounded parenting to help mums, busy mums, to be able to prioritize their self-care, because I just think it's so important for us.
It's so important, and we don't do it enough. Like
No,
you say, we just get through each day surviving, and it's not until they're in bed and you sit downstairs at night, you might get an hour to yourself, and you're shattered. You haven't got
yeah,
any time. You don't feel like doing anything, and it is really depressing. I know exactly what you mean. I know a lot of women could probably relate to that.
oh,
And
definitely.
this being, and we were talking, weren't we, on last week when we spoke about how putting ourselves first
Mm,
actually benefits our children, because we're there, we've got more energy, we can
yeah,
give them more of us than probably we could before, even though before we felt like we were giving everything, we probably weren't.
mm,
But actually prioritizing yourself does help. And I know a lot of mums as well listening maybe thinking like, oh, how do you do it?
mm,
We're so busy. I mean, you've got four boys and stuff, and like you said, you got up earlier so that
mhm,
you could have a bit of quiet time. That's probably, I think, a really good way to start the day, because that way you don't feel you're at capacity before they're out of bed. I sometimes feel like I wake up and I'm rushing and I'm there with demanding children and everybody's needs. So having a coffee in peace before
mm.
they get up is a great way to start. And this whole idea of self-care then. So do you feel now that you can be present, obviously more than you
Oh,
were
most
before?
definitely.
Yeah.
And I've also noticed as well, so I'm definitely more present and bless. You know, when, say, your child is telling you a very long story, for
Yes.
example, that they're very passionate about. I feel that I can just sort of stay in the moment, whereas before, yes, my eyes would be looking at
Yeah,
them, but I would be
me too.
somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I feel that just that shift in me prioritizing myself, prioritizing my needs, has really helped. And I also believe that I'm much more patient. You know, I'm able to listen to whatever they need to say for however long it is. Or, you know, for example, when you're knackered after the day, you've had a long day and all the rest of it, and then when you put them to bed, and then they're like, "Oh, mum, this thing happened," and
No.
you're like, "Ah," but you know, I'm like, I feel that, yeah, I feel that I've got more patience for that. I
Mhm.
feel more productive. I feel that I've got more time in my day as well because,
Really?
yeah, just from that shift, you know, like, yes, I'm a busy mum, and you know, I'm running two businesses and all the rest of it. I do feel that I have still got time because I've put this in, and it's also proven in the stats that when you do prioritize your self care, then you are 20% more productive as
Yes,
well.
I agree,
So,
definitely.
yeah.
So if you've got, say, like, you've got a mum that comes to you and wants help with that, like,
Mhm.
so what sort of things would you suggest for them, in terms of prioritizing themselves? Obviously, eating is a big one.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, so you know, there are lots of the ones that we hear quite a bit, i.e., if you can try and put in more sleep, if you're able to switch off from looking at screens at least an hour before bedtime, that can be really, you know, well, that is very beneficial.
Yes.
And also just work on what it will be right for you. So,
Mm.
obviously, for me, yes, getting up that little bit earlier was beneficial. But if, say, a mum just can't do it for whatever reason, have a look at what else might work. I mean, I remember back in the day when I couldn't do the early morning as much as I wanted to, I would then do it later in the evening. I would just put in a bit of time for me then, and then sit down, write my journal, you know, and do it that way round. And then other things like, I don't know, say you've got littlies and they're still in the pushchair, whatever. You know, when you're deciding to go out for in the daytime, maybe you think about, oh, what I want to do, where I want to walk.
Mm.
Don't just always do it. Just bless them, but don't just go wherever your children want to go. You know, like,
Who's
for
that?
example, I live by the sea, and I need to see the sea. That's, you know, so I used to always sort of steer our walk so that I could at least see the sea before we would go to the park, for example. You know, it's just, yeah, just putting in those. They don't have to be onerous,
Yeah.
but just putting in those little shifts that will sort of lighten and brighten up your day. And then if you do those enough, then you'll see a big shift.
That is so interesting because, excuse me, you're right. Sometimes I find myself, even now, my daughter's 5, the thought of just going to the park on a weekend, it depresses me. And like, I love her to bits. I want her to have fun. I want her to run around and enjoy it. But sometimes I have to tie in something for me as well.
Yeah.
Um, so, it could just be a coffee shop visit. We like going to Costa or somewhere like that. We'll do that. And I've started to do that more, and I'm feeling happier about that rather than just planning my weekend solely around soft play
Yeah.
and around things that actually as awful as it sounds, I hate soft play. It's like it's like a
Yeah.
nightmare, isn't it? It's full of
Yeah.
germs, it's noisy, it's like sensory overload. I
Yeah.
can't bear it. And sometimes she can't, and it just ends up in a huge row, and then the weekend still goes to pot. So you're right, building in little things that you enjoy, nipping into a shop that you like, maybe if you've got a pushchair, like you say, with your baby, nip into a shop, get yourself a bath bomb, I don't know, anything.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
definitely.
so
And
important.
yeah, and then once you've done those things, then I was fine. Then the bits, say, you're not as looking forward to, you can then handle a bit better because
Yes.
you know you put in for you, and then you're like, okay, right, cool. I've done something that's filled me up. Right now, it's time for my children or you
Yeah,
know,
because it's
and
just take, isn't it, otherwise? That's what it
yeah,
feels like. You feel like you've just been robbed of everything all day, every day, and
yeah,
then by the time the evening comes, you're either exhausted or you're shouting or
yeah,
you're fed up,
yeah,
because of the mental load that's on us as mums.
yeah, definitely.
So the women that if you talk to and that you help, obviously, I'm sure that you're a godsend to them. I mean,
Thank you.
absolutely. I know I could have done with someone like you when my daughter was born. I struggled a lot for the first 6 months, without a doubt. And saying even now, I have days. But we were also talking about you training to be a child therapist and
Mhm,
better understanding our child's emotions and dealing with them as a responsive parent, because we
mhm.
had a discussion, didn't we, last week about like the of old school approach,
Yeah,
like, to some of the older generation, we may whatever may come in and look after our children and have a totally different take on their needs
mhm.
and how to respond to them. So tell me a little bit about what you help people with regarding that, understanding your child's emotions. And
So yeah, so I just help mums in particular just to, again, to have little sort of strategies in order to help them be able to regulate their children's nervous system. So for and also just for them to understand how child needs help regulating their emotions. So
yeah,
we know now, you know, from science that children they can't up to a certain age they can't regulate their own emotions. So if they get stressed, you know, if something happens to them, then their cortisol levels are just jacked. They've got that stress hormone, and they can't calm down.
no,
So
can't come back from it, can they?
yeah, so when then we as parents, for example, are saying, calm down, be quiet, you know, or even, why are you doing, you
Mhm.
know, what's going on? They can't answer because they're in that flight or fight mode. They can't even, bless them, they can't tell us even why, because their brain has shifted to that flight or
Yes.
fight mode. So what they need is for us to actually come alongside them and get them to then be able to regulate, to then help them to flood themselves with those calming hormones, you know, to get them back to where their nervous system is then regulated. So we don't even need to talk to them straight away. So if
Mhm.
our child is upset, for example, then we can just, you know, give them a cuddle. Just that's
Yeah.
it. Just hold them, you
Yeah.
know, until they're ready and they're calm and then they're at a state that then, you know, maybe then they'll want to say, "Oh, mummy, this happened," or whatever it is. But just to sort of be alongside them. And I
Yeah.
think once we know and understand about our children's needs and how we can help them and how we need to help them regulate their emotions, then actually as a parent, it can help us too, instead of us potentially looking at our children, or like what we were saying with older generations,
Mhm.
when they would say, "Oh, he's naughty because X, Y, and Z," or, you know, "Oh, the terrible twos because they're having, you know, all these temper tantrums," you know, even you
Exactly.
know, all of
How many
those,
times have we heard that? Terrible twos. I know.
yeah, you
Yeah.
know, all of those things, or, you know, "Oh, he's being naughty because of this, that, and the other," but actually that look, you know, I'm just going to use the example of a boy because I'm a boy. You know, that little boy, he might be screaming and stamping his feet and all the rest of it because he can't actually verbally tell you and explain to you why he's feeling a certain way, you know, and he needs help. He needs mum and dad to come alongside him to calm
Yeah.
him down, regulate him, get him in a position where then he can, you know, move forward, and also to then be able to talk about his emotions. And when we do all these things, then we'll be able to grow emotionally grounded children, and that will stay with them for their whole life.
Absolutely. I love that. It's so true. And it's something that both, I mean, me and my sister talk about it a lot. She's got 3 children, and we always try our hardest to be alongside them when they're going through these difficulties.
Mm.
And, my little girl has a bunny, like a lot of children have comforters. And, guilty as charged. When I'm feeling angry and annoyed when she's not doing what I say. I've sometimes said to her, right, I'm going to take Bunny away.
Mm.
And then that just makes her spiral. And one of her psychologists that we see, she says to me, well, the reason why you can't get her back from that edge is because you're taking away the one thing that is comforting her
Mm.
when you're mad at her. So she literally cannot get herself back. And it just
Yeah.
ends up in a huge, huge, well, just it's awful. It's like a big meltdown, to be honest. So we've stopped doing that now and instead doing exactly what you said, where I sit down next to her and I might not even talk
Yeah.
and I'll just give her a cuddle and she will calm down. But what kind of language would you say that we should be using with our children instead of, it's easy just to go, well, don't do this, don't do that, and snap at them. But how can we speak to them to calm
Um,
them down?
I think obviously it depends on the age of the child,
Mm.
but I think what we can do is like come from a direction of empathy. I think
Yeah.
for me, I'm really passionate about that. So,
Yes.
so for example, just trying to think. So if say a child is really upset because I don't know something that maybe they want.
Maybe like if they've got to turn their tablet off, for example.
Yes, yeah, there you
That's
go.
a good one, isn't
Fantastic.
it?
Thank you. My mind just literally went blank. Yeah. So maybe they've got to turn their tablet off because it's dinner time,
Yeah.
something like that. But obviously they don't want to turn
Yeah.
their tablet off, and they can't understand why they need to turn their tablet off, and why is dinner so important when
Yeah.
I'm watching so and so on the tablet.
Yeah.
And then they're going to kick off
Mhm.
because they're crossed. They've got all these emotions going through their head, and then because they're basically going through the roof. They're flooding their body with the stress hormones, and then obviously we can't calm them down. But yeah, if we just then go sit alongside them, first of all, just comfort them, and then once they're calmer, then we can label those emotions. I can see that
Mhm.
you're really upset right now.
Yeah.
Right now, I can see that you really want to still have your iPad on, and I can
Mhm.
see that this is making you really sad. And when we label those emotions in time, they'll then be able to label those emotions themselves. So that's a massive skill in itself, because
It is.
then that will help them and will teach them in a way that isn't being patronizing or anything else, but then it will teach them to be emotionally intelligent.
Exactly. And their future partners, wives and husbands, are going to thank us for it because they're going to be able to communicate emotionally.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not, and then we don't have to then, you know, obviously give in to our children and say, oh, here's your, or whatever. We can still obviously set those boundaries, but
Yeah.
we can do it in a way that they can see that they are heard. That's a massive thing for children
Yes.
and also for adults too, is that we want to be heard. You know, I
Definitely.
I know even personally myself, if say it's a certain time of month, I want to be heard. I might not be being the most rational person or anything else. And actually, I don't even want, bless my husband, I don't even want my husband to give me, um, to save me with an answer. I
Yeah.
just literally want him to hear me.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I think that's very true for our children, is that they just want to be heard. They've got all these massive emotions going on, and they want someone to just hear them and just, yeah, like what we've said before, just sit alongside them and just show them that empathy, and just to just be there for them as they go through whatever moment it is. And I mean, bless them, during, as they're growing as well, they
Mm.
could be having these sorts of deregulations
Mm.
quite a few times a day, and it's full on. And obviously it's full on for us, but if we can just take it from a place where, right, my child needs me. My child needs me so that their nervous system can be better,
Mhm.
then I feel then it will help us to get there for our children and to then be empathetic and
I agree. And I get so annoyed when people say to me, oh, you're pampering her.
yeah.
Or, it drives me insane because I do not believe that we pamper our child. And I'm not just saying that. I just think that we are there for her and we're responsive. And if there's something that she is not comfortable with, I'm not going to make her do it. And one thing that really annoys me is that, when people with children, like again, if it's family members or whatever, and they go, oh, give them a hug, give them a cuddle, and they don't want to,
Yeah.
they don't want to give them a kiss and a cuddle. Well, why should they? It's their body, it's their
Yeah.
choice. And I hate the way that they sometimes feel forced to do that. And I always say to my little girl Eden, I say, if you don't want to, you don't have to.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want, what you're comfortable with. If you don't want to give them a hug or a kiss goodbye, that's fine. But yeah, it's actually recognizing and making them feel that their feelings and their opinions are valid.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time, it all spirals out of control when they feel like they're not being listened to, like you said.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, definitely. It was interesting actually quite a few years ago. So when I was still a primary school teacher, um, I did a training course on being trauma informed, and it talked about regulating the nervous system, and I found it absolutely fascinating. And anyway, I remember, I think at the end of the day of doing one of those courses, I was telling my son about how we were talking a lot about empathy. And anyway, just after talking about that, he fell over and hurt his knee. And then obviously I was trying to, be really empathetic and stuff.
yeah.
And he was just like, "Oh, mum, that's great. Just keep going. Just keep talking." And it was just really funny.
Oh,
Yeah, how just seeing how much he was just lapping that up
yeah.
and needing that and just wanting to hear those things. And even though I do feel I was been doing it before, but it was just funny in that moment to have seeing him from learning more about it and how it would really help, and then him being like, "Oh yeah, that was great."
Which one's this? Is this the older one, did you say?
So this was Ruben. So he's now 12, but it
Yeah.
happened a few years ago. But even now,
Yeah.
he would lap that up.
Do
Yeah.
you know, it's true. Like, it was only yesterday, actually. It was last night. I was having a bad day, bad emotional day, and there was a lot going on in our family at the moment. I was a bit upset, and I just burst into tears on the sofa, and it was like tea time. So it was about 5, 6 o'clock. And I hate crying in front of my little girl. I hate it, but sometimes it just happens, and it
Yeah.
is what it is. And she came over to me, and she was like, "Mummy, are you okay?" And I said, "Oh, I'm just a little bit sad at the moment." I said, just want everything to be okay for everybody. And so I was having a cry, and she put a hand on me, and she went, "Just let it all out."
Oh,
And I said, and that made me even worse then. And I said,
oh,
"Thank you." She was like tapping me, going, "Just let it out, Mummy. That's it." And I thought, how
oh,
empathetic was
yeah.
that? Like, she didn't just
Wow.
run off and start playing. She sat with me until I actually calmed down. And
Wow.
I thought, do you know what? That is amazing. And just in that
Yeah.
moment, I felt so loved and cared for, and it was lovely. And that's the kind of children that we want to be raising, that feel that they can acknowledge emotions, and
Yes,
help other people regulate them as well. It's
definitely.
fantastic. It's a
In
skill.
Yeah, definitely. And instead of, for example, say having a child who would see a crying adult, for example, and go, "Oh my gosh, I'm not going to deal with that," and walking the other way, which I've definitely seen why when I was a primary school teacher, and
Mhm.
you could see those children go, "Oh, I can't deal
Yeah.
with this."
Yeah, yeah. I know, and they're looking frightened and they're looking scared,
Yeah.
and whereas Eden's always quite inquisitive, she's always over, like, wondering what's going on. She's quite nosy, to be fair,
Yeah.
but, she's very caring, and I think it's important that we don't hold it all in. If something's wrong, it's wrong, and,
Yeah. Yeah,
it's
and that's okay as well,
yeah, letting mums know. 'Cause I think we hold it all in, or we try to hold it all in front of our children, and it's hard, and then it all just comes to a head, and it just comes
Yeah.
out. But if you can, regulate your own emotions,
Yeah.
teaches them how to do it as well, and say, "It's okay. I feel sad today. I feel
Yeah.
angry today." We've got this little calendar that it looks like a calendar on them flip things, and it's got
Oh,
different emotions on. My sister bought it actually for my desk, and you can put out how you're feeling every day. So sometimes we look at it and we'll flip over a picture and say, "Right, how are you feeling today?" I mean, she
oh,
just normally picks the pink ones, to be honest. The pink faces, she hasn't got a clue. But the thought's there to try and help her to understand her emotions and things. But I'm really interested in this topic as well. It's really important. I think you're doing
yeah.
a fantastic job with the business, and
Oh, thank you.
so basically, yeah, to finish sort of our chat, really, obviously you're a working mum of four. I
Yeah.
just wanted to ask if you've got any advice for any other mums out there who might be trying to juggle it all. We talked a little bit about self-care.
Mhm.
But any routines or maybe practices that you may do that you can share with people? How do you manage your time, basically?
So I think number one, don't beat yourself up. So just try every day to sort of put things in for you. But I would definitely say plan it in.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. So I love having my planners. So I
Yes.
have two, one for each business, and then I just make sure that I plan in time for me, and that time doesn't really change.
Yeah.
Because I just feel that if it's not in, then I would forget about it and it wouldn't
Mm.
happen. So yeah, that to me is really important. And then another thing is I sort of time block my time. So I do that with like my business stuff. And then I find when I do time block, then I will get more time, if you see what I mean, to then plan in for me too.
Yeah.
So also, yeah, just look at like write it down your whole day from morning to
Mm.
night and what you do in your day. Obviously, it doesn't have to be rigid, but then yeah, then you can look at maybe time where you could actually factor in time for you. So I think sometimes we go, I haven't got any more time, but then when we break it down, go, oh, actually, I could have used this time when I was doing X, Y, and Z. I could have not done that, and I could have put in time
Yes.
for me. So I think we just need to have a good overview of where we are right now and then look at where we could maybe put in changes.
It's really
And
good because how many times, sorry, do we sit there on social media scrolling for half an
yeah,
hour? We just sat there and I think, what else could you have done in that half an hour that
yeah,
was more
yeah,
productive?
definitely. Or even, I mean, maybe a bit controversial, whatever, but I don't really watch telly anymore. Like, and I just think, yeah, every now and then I might want to put on a movie or whatever, but I don't overly miss it. And
No.
instead, I like reading books. So to me, I'd rather read a book. So I feel then I am putting in my self care that way, just by just doing that little shift. Um, so yeah, I think just really look at like your time, what you're doing now, and then look at where you could maybe put in other things which would be better for you, better for your time,
Yeah.
and then go from there. And then going forward, obviously, you'll have days when we might go back to our old
Mm.
ways or anything like that. But don't beat yourself up.
Yeah.
Try not to berate yourself. And I think we have to be very careful as mums how we obviously talk to ourselves,
We
you know,
do.
and all of those sorts of things. And I think that comes into self care too. So we have to
Yes.
be very mindful of that. Um, so I think that's really important. And also, because again, it's very easy for us to have that mum guilt, but we need to just shift it and think,
Mhm.
actually, no, this is important because this is needed for me. And if I do this for me, then this will be great for my children, and shift it that way. Over the summer, I think I told you this story, but when we went camping and I got everything ready, got all the food ready and all the rest of it, and then I realised I hadn't prioritised me in the fact of food because all I'd got for myself was a bag of carrots and hummus. Because I'm dairy free and gluten free, and I was just like, oh,
But you see, prime example.
yeah. And then I was like, ah. But I then I felt guilty because I remember being like, oh no, oh that's right, I'll have this. But then I was like, oh, but I really would, I'd like to have something nice and treat myself and maybe get a cake. But I felt a bit guilty, like doing that because I was like, oh, I shouldn't have done that in the first place. I should have packed better. And bless my husband, he went to the shop because he was getting ice cream for the boys, and secretly in my head I was going, I really hope he gets me something. I really hope he gets me. And he did. He got me something, and I was like, thanks so much. And he was like, yeah, Shan, because I couldn't bear you having another carrot. But really, I shouldn't have had that mum guilt, and I should have just got the cake myself.
Oh, that's so funny. Do you know, I totally relate. Something similar happened to me when we went swimming the other day, right? And I packed my daughter's stuff. I put my husband's stuff in a bag because, obviously he's capable of doing it, but I thought he's probably going to forget something. So I just did it. And then we got to the swimming baths and we went in and everything. And when I came back to get changed, I forgot to put my bra and knickers in to get changed. And I was like, what? I'd done everybody else's. So
Oh no.
yeah, getting this hoodie on with no bra. I said to, we're supposed to go to Tesco afterwards on the food shop. And I said to my husband, we can't go. He said, oh, it'll be fine. I said, no, I'm not going now. I've got a bra on. So it just, you don't think, you just get everybody else sorted first.
Oh, yeah.
You had a bag of carrots, I had no bra.
You just go into that autopilot sometimes, don't you? And I think you just have to always just step back and go, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What have I got for me? What have I packed for me, or whatever it is?
Right.
Just,
yeah. Put your own oxygen mask on before everyone else's. That's what we said last time, wasn't it? And it's true. Like, we have to be able to function to help everybody else.
Yeah.
Oh God, we'll finish on that note. That's a good way to finish. But if anybody wanted to get in touch with you for the Grounded Parenting, do you have a Facebook page for that as well, don't you?
Yes. Yeah. So the Facebook page is Grounded-Parenting.
Yeah.
And then the same for Instagram.
Yeah.
And and then I've also just got a grounded-parenting.com/links, and there's a few freebie guides in there as well.
Oh, great. I'll put the link again in the show notes, but I just wish you could move in with me, because I think you'd be like Mary Poppins in this house. I think you would help so much. Calm us all down. It's been so lovely talking to you. I've really enjoyed it. And I know that everybody listening will be able to relate and will have loved hearing your stories too. So thank you. Take care of yourself, and best of luck with both of your enterprises, your businesses. They're absolutely fantastic. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.
Bye. How lovely is Chantal? I hope you got some wonderful pearls of wisdom from her and can go about the rest of your day knowing that it's more than okay to put yourself first. Not just once in a while or even like once a week, but every single day. We need to, in order to give the best possible version of ourselves to our families, our partners, and even our businesses. Because if you're running on empty, you're irritable, you're knackered all the time, you're not going to achieve anything. And like Chantal said, there are stats to prove that we are 20% more productive when we prioritise a bit of time for us. You may feel at the time that, you end up doing less if you take time out for you. But actually, science says that you end up achieving more. And I ain't going to argue with science. So on that note, I'm taking that and I'm running off to Home Bargains now for a mooch at the Autumn Decor on my lunch break. So you can find out more about Chantal's parenting mentor services. I've put all the links in the show notes. She's got a couple of really good free resources on there as well to help you get started on this mission of prioritising yourself. So go and download these. They're there and they're free. And that's it for today. Thank you for listening. Please do rate and review, or even better, leave a comment on this episode on whatever platform you're listening to. I'll reply personally to all the comments and just love to hear from you. So please do that if you can. And take care of yourselves until next week.